my name is Jules, and this is a VOD review of a 3500 Kings Row game on Mercy, and this is my first VOD review, so it's gonna be a bit scuffed, but just work with me here. She seems to be running a good comp for Mercy, and she's already damage boosting her Junkrat, so that's good. A good damage amplified number by like the end of the match would be around 1,800, like at minimum, but if you're not there yet, that's okay. She's hiding from the enemy Widow, she's not playing up front, so that's good. Playing around the corner, her Tracer's crit, she can't really do anything about that. Tracer died, so you should back up, back up, good. You have 3 critical here, so what you're going to want to do is that you can either beam flick, but your main priority is keeping up your Moira, as she can heal all of your team at one time, and you can't. You see the Tracer, so you see the thing, good.
I'm with you.
Reiner is just scared, he's probably going to die. Alright, Reiner died. He does die. Your Reinhardt only had around 38 ult percentage anyway. And so that res, it could be viable, but none of your team has ults either. So it really wouldn't have done anything for you guys, because you guys didn't have the resources to go back on that, and plus, you already had 3 teammates down. So it wouldn't have been all that viable.
I must go where I'm needed.
Your Zarya looks like she already needs healing. Oh, that's not your fault. Your team, you could either get the res off here, or your team should back up. Looks like your team's going back up, so that res on that Zarya would have been really good. That damage boost was good. Your Reiner has this barrier up now, so you should swap back up to damage boosting Moira.
Did someone call for me?
You should be playing behind the Reinhardt. You should not have gone that way. You definitely need to fall back. You're down a few of your teammates. You're playing in the middle of the enemy team, which you shouldn't really be doing. You should have been playing in this corner, like right here from the start, instead of just sitting in the middle. You can still see everyone, and you can just move back and forth right there, instead of just playing in that corner. Get out of here instead. Really good. Now you should go down to that teammate and you should fly away. Go back to your spawn or die. Please shatter, that's a good bait, but you hesitated a lot there, and that could have pretty easily have gotten you killed, and then you would have just staggered your team. Even though your Tracer was technically going to be at the same time as you, but Tracer's a faster respawn, she has her blinks and everything, meanwhile you rely on your teammates to get out quicker. Mercy's a very fast-paced character, so you hesitating there is not good. This is good, you're able to keep up your Reinhardt, but you should not be going first before you do that Discord event could have easily killed you. You're gonna go on to the Widow, alright. I like that you left after you realized that she got the health pack, and that it would have been more beneficial for your team for you to just play up with them and keep them alive. You go forward and out of the Widow's sights, good. Your team kills the Widow anyway, but I noticed that you haven't used any voice lines this whole game, like fall back or like group up with me or anything. So your teammates could have very easily have gotten killed by that Widow, and they wouldn't have known it. Of course, I can't tell if you're like in voice channel or anything due to it being a replay, but that's something you should consider, like equipping some voice lines and just saying when they're behind, because that Widowmaker could have been pretty fatal to your team being able to hold this point here. Your Tracer dies there, and you're left to either damage boost your tanks or damage boost your Widow. You're choosing damage boost your healing. That's good. There's a lot of healing that you're doing. Instead of healing your Moira here, which is able to heal both of them at the same time a lot faster than you would, since you don't heal her, she has to back up, and I can imagine that your tanks are only going to die right here. Okay, and that is pretty good. You fly right in front of that Zen. It's not really a bad thing, but you flew directly in front of him, and you did like a full flying. You did not do like a half committed one or anything, so you landed right in front of the Zen, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but in the future you should try and play like behind that pole that's right there instead, because you landed directly in his face, and one more shot, since he had already a Discord on you, could have pretty easily killed you and got you staggered there. And his team, I believe they could have pushed on that. I wasn't really paying attention to where they were at that moment. Both of your teammates are down, and you're not gonna have res, which is good. They're both in the middle of the fight, so that would be good. Healing your Tracer is good. One thing about right there was that you were standing out again in the middle of nowhere, not even behind your Reinhardt's barrier, which again you shouldn't do. Mercy, you should be playing like right here, or even like here, or behind the payload. Another thing that I've noticed is that you play behind your Reinhardt's barrier, which Reinhardt's their barriers get destroyed and everything, and they also put it down, or they move forward, or they move backwards. These walls and things, they don't ever move, and you're not probably going to die behind them. So I would say that you should be doing that, because you spend a lot of time either behind the barriers or out in the middle of the field. Here you should be either damage boosting your Widow, who just went up there. Yeah, you could definitely
never die.
Valk, and you're playing sort of like in this ground right here. You should have been up in the sky right here before, if you were looking to heal your Widow and whoever was right here. I think it was your Tracer, but instead you were playing like on the ground, and really strange. Their Widow was already down that whole time, so there was no need for you to play there, and it would have probably done a lot more for your Widow here. Like, look, now your Widow's being chased all the way back there, which isn't necessarily your fault, but now you have to follow her in, and you're playing already on the ground level, so you could pretty easily die here if they knew how to kill you. So you always want to be in the air, especially when you have the advantage, like their Widow being down. You should be in the air and playing as high as possible, because that also helps you get a vantage point earlier for the next fight. Your Widow gets a pick. You have the lead right now. You're playing up. Alright, you're damage boosting Widow. You say blown up, your Widow comes back.
My ultimate is charging. My ultimate is charging.
Let's get you back
Right here would be a really good spot for you to be in. You should not be playing with your team like this. The enemy team is all the way back there, and if you play with your Widow, she has line of sight since the Reinhardt is right here, and she could very easily get some picks on them. So you shouldn't really be here. You should be trying, you should always be trying to get your DPS to get the most value that they can, especially since you are running a Moira. Your heals are not really needed here. Your Moira can take care of both of these tanks, while your job can be to take care of your 2 DPS. You should not be afraid to push up as long as you have an escape plan, which here you could either go backwards, and you can just be playing like backwards, or like in the hotel running up and down the stairs and then just fly around, or if one of your teammates are peeking around this corner, you could fly from there and fly over. But you playing here is not gonna be giving your team the most value. Your Zarya already has ult, and your Reinhardt almost has ult, and your Widow has free line of sight and could get a pick before they push in, which would let them not be able to capitalize.
Where does it hurt?
You're spending a lot of time with beam downtime, really. The card is being pushed, and you notice it, and you start going to it. Your Reinhardt's quicker there. Good. You're still just playing on the cart.
I have empowered you.
Good years.
Let's get you back
Our fire will surrender to my will.
You're gonna want to go back over there now. Okay, good.
Did someone?
For the most part, that shatter was unlucky, but you definitely could have earlier. You could have flown over and hit in that corner again, like I was saying earlier. You went to the exact same corner, which I was telling you not to use. Simply because it leaves you super exposed, and again, you were probably thinking that they were gonna go for your team instead of you, because your Reinhardt's right here, but again, you can't really rely on your Reinhardts to provide you protection, because again, their barriers fall down and everything, so you should always be playing like behind some sort of cover, whether even if it was like just a payload. But this corner, there's nothing protecting you from the oncoming team, so you should always avoid playing in spots like this.
No one can hide
During that
from
last
my
fight,
sight.
you probably had around like 50 seconds of beam downtime where you just weren't like healing or
Witches
damage
don't die
boosting
that
or
easily.
targeting the right people, and you were not thinking about who could be getting the most value. Like, for example, you could be looking for who's gonna get their ult quickest. So, let's say, for example, your Zarya did not have ult that entire time. That
My spell is upon you.
you could have thought about who's gonna get their ult fastest and who should I be damage boosting. For example, if your Zarya did not have ult and she was going forward to get it, you would have gone with her instead. If Zarya does have ult, if your Reinhardt does have ult and he's just holding up his barrier, you should be playing with your Tracer, because you do not want to follow, or you should be following with your Widow, because you do not want to follow your Tracer, and Tracer's main job is to play in the back line, and Widow's main job is to get some picks, which you definitely could have helped her get, and she had line of sight. So, and you would have probably also gotten her ult, which would have been a lot more effective for your team, rather than you sitting on the payload or damage boosting your standing still Reinhardt, really, or even healing your team there, because they already had everything. And right now you are playing right in the middle of the shooting range of your team, and your Reinhardt just died, so your team has no one to be the front line currently, especially since your Zarya is right there, and you are frontlining with your Tracer. Your Tracer is gonna touch first before you, but you're not gonna be able to get off that res. They're all right there. So let's see what you're gonna do here. Guys, you don't want to res. You're down one. You can win this. Healing your Reinhardt. Good. Tracer's up there, so you want to keep that in mind. You just tried to super jump after you clearly saw the Tracer's bullets raining down from that high ground, which you could have very easily, if that super jump did go off, you probably would have been one clipped by that Tracer, as you probably would have been on the same level as her. So let's see if you call it out or if you pay attention to who they may go after, which would probably be your Widow. I think they're up there, and the Trace is probably gonna double blink across and go for it. So let's just hope that you turn around and you try and help your Widow. which you could heal her and then damage boost her, and then that Tracer would be gone and out of your guys' problems. When your Reinhardt dies, this fight is most likely a loss if you can res that, and you also did not see that Tracer, which was healing. So you need to pay attention to what's going on around you, because I know that you saw that Tracer. You clearly saw her bullet spraying down, but you didn't use your voice lines or anything to possibly give your team a hint that there is someone in your backline, nor did you even look up to see where your teammates might be to see if Tracer would be a threat, because that Tracer could have either went down, could have killed you, the Tracer could be going to go kill your Widow, which would be on that high ground, and you didn't look at your Widow, you didn't look at where she was going, you didn't even turn around to look at her, you were constantly looking forward and just looking for who to heal, how am I going to get Valk the quickest, which should not have been your approach, but again, your Reinhardt pushed up and died, so that fight wasn't really your fault, and in the end you did save your Widow, but you definitely should have made the connection between Tracer going after the Widow there a lot quicker than you did.
My servants never
Leave
die.
out there, which is not that good of an idea. Again, you're not looking for your Widow, and now you heal your Widow, and you're doing good. Reinhardt's back, and you go up to your Widow, and you're staying with that high ground. When you get places like that, and you didn't even damage boost anyone there, you should have stayed on that high ground. You didn't have to go heal your Moira. You should have stayed on your Widow. I would understand if you didn't have any confidence if you're in your Widow that you wouldn't have stayed up there, but she kills 2 people here, and you definitely could have contributed more to that. I would say that at this point you have maybe like 500 damage amplified, which is not that bad, but it's also been 6 minutes and you've definitely had a lot more chances to do better with it. But yeah, I don't have your end of the game stats. You didn't know them, and this is a replay, so I can't see. But I wouldn't really assume that you have gold healing either. Your Moira is doing a pretty good job at keeping your tanks up and staying alive and healing and knowing when to use coalescence and when to engage with it. So I wouldn't say that you probably have gold healing, or if you do, you guys are probably close. So I would make sure that you just do more for your DPS here. Your team is going to win if you capitalize off of their Widow. This Reinhardt is not really playing with their team, and so your Widow has the high ground. And if you're worried about like that Widow up there on that spot, there's a little, you can like crouch and just like stay hidden all the way behind. So you don't really have to worry about that spot being super freeing or like an easy Widow target spot. You would definitely get a lot more value out of damage boosting your Widow here over sitting on the cart with your team. You super jump back up and you help your Widow to try and shoot that Widow. Tracer kills it, you go back up, good. You go down, okay. You're running Moira, good. You should be damage boosting Zarya here if you're trying to get her ult, if that's why you're not playing there. Good.
Did someone call for it?
Good. You're playing in the back line, you're not playing up front of your team, that's good. Damage boosting Reinhardt is not bad here. I have a feeling that you super jump up, good, and you play on the high ground. You give up the high ground.
No one can hide.
You have a lot more benefits playing up on that high ground with a Widow. Like, you can heal your team from up there still. Like, you still reach them and you can be damage boosting in between. Like, see how she just got a pick, like, right there. When your team is right there, they are pretty much out of reach of them, but your Widow can hit people from any distance. So, you should probably be damage boosting your Widow.
My sight. My will is close.
You know, res the Tracer, which is good. Tracer is good respawn. The Widow pops up forward, your Widow gets her. We're pulling a little bit in the back line.
Damage
Damage boosting your Moira, good. That will get her Coalescence and this will be an easy win.
Did someone call for
Moira gets charged.
my servants?
Start here.
I'm here.
Okay. If you are going to go for a res like that, you should not be playing on that ground level, especially with a Reinhardt and like a Roadhog. You should have been playing above the Reinhardt's head, and you should have also probably not have gone for that res that staggered you even farther. It's okay to get a bad Valkyrie and not really get anything out of it. Your team still has 3 ults, and you still had Coalescence, but you just staggered yourself even farther there when you could have ran back into spawn and possibly used like the last few seconds of Valkyrie to damage boost, but instead you went for that, and your Moira is probably also gonna get staggered here now because of you resing her, and their whole team is right here. But let's see. Yeah, your Moira gets staggered even later than you, so now you don't have Coalescence anymore.
Vi vårdar moderna medicin.
You're playing up here, good. You should be staying here, good. You could be damage boosting the Coalescence. You're playing, yeah, you're playing in the range of that Widow. You should be playing back there where they can't see you. Or here is good. This is definitely good. I would be saying like fall back to your teammates because they're trying to get people from back there, but you guys are having trouble with just that. Failure super jump. Yeah, you guys not killing that Hammond really just messed up your team fight, and your whole team died off of that. Okay. I'm hoping to see you stay on this Widow here, which you seem to be doing. You could have been playing like more out there. You're not really doing anything. Damage boosting Widow. Good.
I'm here.
Going up to the team, not a bad idea. Damage boosting Zarya. You have an Ana here now, so there's no more burst healing, so if you're not going to be damage boosting as much anymore, that's okay, because Ana's only real group healing now is going to be a grenade, which only happens like every 10 seconds or something, I believe. I'm not too sure with the cooldown. But yeah, now you can be a lot more hesitant on damage boosting, but you should probably go back and heal your Widow here, because there's going to be a Widow engagement soon. And I think your Ana can handle it for like the 3 seconds that you'll be away.
My healing spell is upon
Your Widow dies, which is okay. You super jump up into this area, which is really good. This is a really good spot to be. I'm really glad that you took this position. You took the high ground, and you also stopped the Tracer from getting you. But you don't know where that Widow is that just killed your Widow. I don't think the Widow's there, so you're lucky there, but they think the Widow might be over there. But if you move forward anymore, she could definitely headshot you from here, so you should be playing like maybe around right there, because you do not know where that Widow is. Your Ana gets charged there, it's not your fault. Your Reinhardt charges back, and you start healing. Alright, you can get this res off here. This is pretty safe. Good.
The battle continues.
Healing.
Thank you. Let's get to that outfit.
You should be damage boosting. Yeah. Healing and Tracer, you shouldn't have stood there. They could have pulse bombed you even though they don't have it.
I've got you. Anyone want to join me? You've got this.
Something that you could have done there that would have been a lot more efficient was maybe damage boost your tracer. They were not gonna go far, so we could have maybe killed that tracer quicker, but that is a stagger, so it's not really a bad thing, but that definitely could have been a lot more efficient for your tracer.
But this bitch doesn't burn.
You're gonna want to stay group up here. Okay. That seemed like you might have been in a voice channel because you did not say group up, but that could have also just been luck. So there you definitely should have said the voice line group up with me, and have healed them. I also don't like how you're going down to payload. Your tracer here seems to be AFK, so I'm sure that they will go on the payload first before you, and you're abandoning basically your team and the Widow when you could be damage boosting this Widow here as they just got a kill, but we'll see. Maybe you're going down to your team.
Protect the payload.
No, as I thought you're playing on the payload. So your tracer leaves, and you're gonna have even more beam downtime. You're probably gonna have like around 1 minute of downtime at this point, where you just didn't even have your beam on anyone. Which you do not want beam downtime. You're gonna want to go back like quickly here. I know you have a thing with hesitating. You need to go back. They know that you're there. You're lucky that Ryan did not push up. Ana gets sleep. You say Reinhardt pins him. He gets sleep. Side dove out. It's not a bad idea. You take this wall. Proud of you for doing that. You definitely could have very easily just went forward instead, but I think you heard the grab, so you knew not to be there, so you're playing right there. It looks like your Reinhardt sees the Widow, so you could be damage boosting here. Right now you're healing. You decide not to pull up. Still good. You damage boost. Good. More damage boost.
Damage increase. I'm moving the payload. Your support has arrived.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
You definitely shouldn't have been there. That was a really bad spot. That would have made it could have gotten you, especially since they had sights.
Much obliged.
That's good. You decide to super jump. I'm assuming that's what's gonna happen here, and you're gonna try and use that to get out of the way of this tracer and baiter, because they're gonna continue to blink forward, which I think that's very good. That's probably gonna be very smart of you, and I'm hoping that you'll be in there in time to save your team as they are getting beat drop and everything. But I think that this is gonna be really good. Super jump. You can. You should have honestly just stopped moving right in front of that cafe. There was no way that you were gonna get out. The Zarya just. Their whole team was following you. They have a Lucio speed boost. There was no way that you were gonna get out. They all knew where you both were. It's sort of like your Zarya's fault for bubbling you, but you probably got her some ult charge, so it's okay. But you could have died a lot quicker there, but it's not gonna be a big deal. Your team's down already.
Immer unterbricht mich jemand bei der Arbeit.
Let's get the payload moving again, yeah? Push forward.
That's the healing spell. I have empowered you. I'm taking care of you. Don't stop now.
You're right.
Probably
Probably gonna die here.
my servants never die.
You do not want a Valk in a Grav. That Reinhardt was very close to being able to kill all of you guys, and they all have everything on you. It's good that you want to use your Valk, but if when you Valk into a Grav, you already have so much damage taking you, and the chances that you are going to outlive that Grav and everything is very low. But it seems to work here, but you definitely could have waited like a few more seconds for that Grav to be gone before you pressed it. So good job for doing it here, but don't make it a habit, as it can be a very easy way to remove your ult.
Fire at will!
If you're doing that idea, then you definitely should be your other healers still there. Yeah. You're not gonna want to heal as much when you're in Valk, or especially like towards the end when your team is taking like no more damage. You're going to want to leave as much healing left over for yourself afterwards. You're gonna want to have your Valk as soon as possible. You want to have Valk as soon as possible. Every single fight, you should be close to having Valk. Especially right after your Valk, you should save some healing for yourself or your other healer if you're not gonna have Valk the next fight, which they were taking a lot of healing out from your BAP, which is okay, but he should have his ult here.
The payload has reached the objective.
Hey there.
You healed that Reinhardt. You're playing this okay. Your team just used a lot of ult to die. Oh, and that wasn't good at all. That's okay, that really wasn't your fault. That was a lot of your team's fault.
A clean bill of health. Casting a spell on you.
Start doing your Ash or damage boosting, that's good. There's a soldier behind you, you should be staying something. So that your team actually deals with him. But your team dies, so it's okay. You should definitely be playing like against this pole. You should, or like in spawn right now. That Reinhardt could have shattered you again if you did have it. And kill you down, so you should you see that Bob, and you're still playing her, but everyone's gonna leave. Yeah, now Bob's on you. As soon as you saw that Bob come up, you should have went forward. They no longer have anything that can one-shot you anymore, so it would have been a lot better if you had just pushed up, because then now it's going to be shooting at you this whole time and you're going to be doing nothing. Also, you're healing when your team is all full health, so you should be damage boosting here, especially if you want your ult for next fight. And yeah. It's forcing you to go around, and now your Reinhardt has to back up to try and take all the pressure off from you. That's a good res, but you hear that soldier and you don't really say anything. The team starts shooting at him, and it's probably just healing himself. Damage boosting the Ashe, this is the best position that you want to be in, but you are playing a little bit in the open. You should be playing a little bit in that corner or something, because your Lisa could come up here with you guys or something. So just shooting you, decide to go back here. Just stay playing here. You keep on peeking it, you don't have to. Yeah, she's taking damage.
Casting a spell on you.
Yeah, at this point, you either should have left your Ashe and went where that Zarya was and possibly gotten out through there, or you should have jumped in the hole, which is right here, because this is a huge stagger. Mercy and Ashe, you guys work really well together, and this could very easily win you guys points, but you both are going to be down, and you're getting down to your last like 3 fights possibly, and you don't even have ult, and neither will she, so you should be dying here. You should not be trying to fight this. There's no way that you're gonna do it. Your whole team is in spawn. They die, and then your whole team is already back up, and you only just then decide to go down. That was not, you definitely could have gotten out a lot quicker.
Ich bin da. Point me in that direction. 60 seconds remaining. Enchanting your damage.
You see the soldier and you don't see they do anything, you just go up here, which is not a bad idea.
This is not the end.
Should have always gotten out, but it's possible you might win here, but your Zarya is way too deep in. You guys are not going to have her last fight. Now you need to just get out. You are completely staggering yourselves, allowing yourselves to possibly be killed. Your Reinhardt got stuck in the corner and staggered himself. Now you have no one to touch payload. You could possibly miss out, but yeah, like what just happened to you, the chances were very grim of you actually making it. So here's some things I want to talk about and explain. So some positives about your gameplay is that you know how to super jump into safe areas. You know like what high grounds to take advantage of and where to do it, but a lot of the time you choose not to. But you definitely have an understanding of where to be and what you're meant to be going. You have a lot of cart awareness. You know where the cart is meant to be and where you are meant to be playing and where your team should be playing. But you don't say group up. You don't really like try and capitalize off of it. You don't try and really help your team know that too. You know when to not use your pistol. During that one fight with that Widowmaker, you saw that she got her health pack and you already knew that you're going to be wasting your time just trying to kill her and you might die to her. So you decide to back up, you get out of there, and that was a really good decision. Another positive is that you do not excessively die. A lot of Mercies, they tend to die very much, and you understood generally where to be. You do have some position errors, don't get me wrong, but you definitely know where to play, and you know like where to be so that you aren't like dying. Like you know not to be in front of your Reinhardt really or anything, but that's another positive. You recognize that this was not a good game for you. When I asked you what you think about this gameplay, you told me that you know that you made a lot of position errors and things like that. So I think it's really good that you can recognize that this is not like the best gameplay of yours. Your team made a lot of bad decisions also, and they dumped a lot of ults into fights that weren't gonna be won. So a lot of it wasn't your fault. But I'm glad that you can also see that there were also faults in your Mercy gameplay which could have had an effect on it. Some negatives about your gameplay are that you tend to tunnel vision a lot. Like when that soldier was there, you sort of just like ignored him, didn't say anything, and with that one tracer flank when you guys were on defense, you just kept on looking forward and you just sort of like ignored it and just like pretended it wasn't there, and a lot of the time you would be staring forward. You wouldn't really be looking around. You wouldn't be looking like if the enemy team has some DPS that are flanking or like a Reinhardt that's flanking for a shatter. You would always just be looking at your team and your team only and not even really like your DPS or really thinking about things like that. Another thing, like I said, you don't really take advantage of the better positions. Mercy, you should not really want to be on the ground with your team. Any chance that you have, like, to play on the high ground and give yourself an advantage, you should take. You should not be playing on the high ground. You should not, or I mean, you should not be playing on the low ground. You should not be hiding behind your Reinhardt's barrier. You should be hiding in any possible high grounds, any areas like that are behind like walls and anything, like behind the payload sometimes. Another thing is that you tend to hesitate a lot. Like with your Mercy gameplay, especially points where like your team dies, you tend to hesitate and you think, oh, if I bring up this person, maybe we would be able to win the fight and everything. Or you're like, oh, there's someone behind me. I guess I'll just run forward. Um, or when your team isn't contesting, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be the first one to contest, but how do I get there? What do I do? Do I res here? A lot of Mercy is very fast paced, so you should be always trying to figure out those decisions before like you get there, especially with like that contesting on the payload on defense. Like you see your Reinhardt die, and you still fly up and you decide to try and res him, which ultimately wastes your cooldowns and everything. So you're gonna want to be confident in your decisions. If you don't think that it's a good res, you probably should not be doing the res, especially if your team does not have the resources to be able to follow up on what you're doing. Another thing that you tend to do is that you tend to stagger yourself a lot, even though I think you know when you're meant to get out and everything. Instead, you just sit there and you try and hope for the best, which is not really something that you should be doing. You should always be trying to get out first and like be there for your team. You should not be wanting to die like last and wait, because it definitely gives you not the advantage that you're gonna want to be looking for. Um, you mentioned that this is like one of your first few games of being into Masters, and you definitely show the ability to play in Masters, but if you work on some of the things that I pointed out, it will definitely uplift your gameplay and help you smoothly actually be in Masters, because you definitely do make some mistakes which can be a big problem in places like Masters. Some things that I think that you could do to help you do these things is rewatch some of your gameplay and like think about what you've done like wrong in your opinion. Like, what do you think that you could have done better? Do you think that you shouldn't have Valk there? Do you think that you should have waited for Valk? You should have, like could have been damage boosting someone else instead. Um, you could look at some more of the points of the maps like around you, and you could look at where you think a good vantage spots are, because you tend to like leave good places, or like you look at them and you sort of ignore them even though you have like the ability to super jump and everything, so you could very easily play in those spots, but you just sort of choose not to, or maybe you don't know about where to be. So you could definitely look at more maps to see. um there's a Mercy YouTuber who I watch. Her name is Neandra. There's a Mercy YouTuber that I watch. Their name is Neandra, and they make a lot of really good like Mercy videos. Like, they do Mercy VOD reviews. They talk about like just like a whole bunch of things about like Mercy things, and I definitely feel like their channel could be a big help for you, and that you would be able to know a lot more. You could, you should also just practice like looking around more often. I feel like you, with your tunnel vision, it's from you just being so worried about what's ahead of you, and you aren't looking about like the things that are happening around you. You're only looking at what's in front of you. You aren't really like turning around. You aren't really checking for flankers or anything, which is gonna be very fatal. Once you climb more and more and up masters, you need to be able to look around and think about what's happening around you. Um, Another thing is you should be checking the scoreboard a lot more often. I don't really think that you were looking at the scoreboard. You weren't really looking like for if the person that you're rezzing has ult, or like if your team would be able to even capitalize, like how many people died or everything. You should definitely be like thinking about a lot more of those things. But overall, this really was not bad, but there are definitely things that you can work on. And thank you for watching, and hope that this helps.